Hello everybody, and welcome to the Elder Scrolls Online beta. So the NDA is up on this, and it's during the beta weekend, and I seriously got like 20 keys from them to play in this weekend, so they clearly wanted me to play. Now, I have played quite a bit of Elder Scrolls Online, and it may not look like it from my two characters here, which are level 4 and level 2, but they had a beta wipe, and before that I had a level 25 character, so I had gotten up fairly high within the levels, and I have experienced a lot of this game. I'm not going to tell you whether or not it's good or it's bad right now. I'm just going to show you a bit of the game, and I'll let you to decide, you know, if you like it or not, and if you do, then awesome. If you don't, then whatever, you know, it's your choice on what games you want to play. Awesome. So let's make a new character, right? There are a ton of options here. I should mention that most of my stuff is on high, which is nice. There are quite a few things that are off because, you know, it kills your performance and doesn't really make the game look that much better. But with everything on high, this is kind of what the game looks like, which is not bad. It looks like a game from about 2 years ago as far as graphics are concerned, and for an MMO, that's not too bad. So, you know, you can't really expect a whole lot out of an MMO's graphical nature unless you're playing Terra, for example. But you have your different alliances here. So you have the Daggerfall, you have the Aldmeri Dominion, and then the Ebonheart. You can kind of choose between the three, and then within the three factions, the alliances, you have 3 races to choose. So the Daggerfall has the Breton, the Orc, and the Redguard, all familiar if you've ever played an Elder Scrolls game. The Aldmeri has the High Elf, the Wood Elf, and the Khajiit, which is the cat people. And the Ebonheart has the Argonian, the Dark Elf, and the Nord. Arguably the worst starting zone, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, you have your male and your female characters, and then you can just pretty much, you know, randomize your appearance if you really wanted to. There's some cool stuff that you can actually do. I like their character editor. I don't like it as much as I do, like, I guess I actually, a combination. I like this if it were combined with the Neverwinter stuff, because Elder Scrolls is a, you know, it's a pretty good game in the fact that you do a lot of role playing, and if you ever made a character in Elder Scrolls before, you know, any Elder Scrolls game, you've probably put a lot of thought into your character, which is to say that I would like one of those Neverwinter things in there, because in Neverwinter you can like put like a huge backstory. There's all this, you know, backstory that comes with your character that you get to choose, like where your character came from and what their upbringing was and stuff like that. Really like that kind of thing. Not in this, unfortunately, but it would have been a nice addition. So we're gonna make, let's just, you know what? Let's check out the classes real quick and we'll decide what we're gonna make. So you have the Dragon Knight, your typical like warrior type class. You have the Sorcerer, which is pretty fun. You have the Nightblade, and you have the Templar. None of this at first glance is like oh, you know, that is that from that game. You know, that is the mage type, you know, from Skyrim. I mean, kind of the Sorcerer, but as you'll see later, there's some weird differences there. Of the 2 classes that I had, I actually probably should have showed you this first. I know we're dinkering here. I mean, we'll get there. We'll make a character. I swear we'll actually show you the game. I made a Nightblade and I made a Sorcerer, but this isn't just like, oh, I made a Nightblade and, oh, this is clearly a Sorcerer. There's a lot of choices you can make within the game. And I made my Sorcerer, as you can tell from the armor it's wearing, more of a Battle Mage, which is what I liked from Morrowind, or not Morrowind. What was it? Oblivion so much. Yeah, I made an awesome Battle Mage, and that's always been my class since then, is I love the Battle Mage archetype, you know, sword and board, but with spells. So I made that, and you could do things like that, so you're not just limited here. So let's actually make a Nightblade, because I actually do quite like the Nightblade, and let us make a Wood Elf. Let's make a dude just because we can. So the actual body customizer here is fairly robust. You can, you know, make your different look of the actual character for the body type. Let's go with kind of like a thin, muscular, because he's a rogue, you know, he's got to be able to get around. He's going to be a little bit shorter. The skin color, probably a bit darker, because he likes to kind of blend in a bit. And where's the hair? Because I desperately need to change that hairstyle before we do anything else with this. No, we need something very roguey, very roguelike. That's kind of there. That's not it. You know, mohawk, whatever. Smaller mohawk, longer hair. Wow, he actually looks very creepy now that I've gotten up close. Maybe a mohawk is quite roguey. That'll do. That is like, if I imagine a rogue, I'm pretty sure that is the first thing that my mind would go to, really. So we'll start with that. And you could change all these other things about his face, which is what we're going to do, because, to be honest, I mean, it's kind of creepy looking. Let's go with more of a soft, because, you know, he's a rogue. He's got to be able to convince people. And you can change the voices, which you can get a little sampling of. Whatever, let's go with B. I'm not going to worry too much about this. I don't want to take too long on character creation, because actually I want to show you the game. We'll bring his age down so he's not all freaking wrinkly. His head marking, not something crazy. Oh, actually, what was that? No, I actually kind of like that. Cool, we'll go with it. What does the endowment do? Okay, well, that is obviously his facial hair. What can we do? That is roguey. Actually, that feels like a rogue to me. So there's a lot of this, though. Is there just I don't know. I think the eye patch is perfect. Let's go with it. But you could change the face pretty heavily here. What you want to do. Typical Elder Scrolls stuff. Like that it's in there. And as far as eye color, can we go something like green? Can we do a green? It feels very yellowy. That's the problem with the green. Even the yellow feels yellowy. Let's go with that. That looks fine. Change the eye size. Probably a bit bigger because he's kind of small eyes. And the angle can come up a bit. The separation, probably a bit further. Wow, that always tweaks out my vision looking at them when you do the eye separation. The eye squint. He's not a very squinty guy, but he has some. Change the eyebrows, especially his, because he's got super pointy eyebrows. Oh, no, one more. There we go, perfect. And we'll leave the rest. Whatevs. He looks kind of cool. We'll deal with it. One thing I do want to go back to is the body and make him a bit larger, because his head doesn't necessarily match his body. That's better. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Whatever, we'll deal with it. You can change his butt size. Yeah, that's a feature. Whatever. Foot size, hand size. And I think we'll go with that. Let's name him Rojak. Perfect. Create. Now let's actually show you what the game is like. Remember, it's still kind of in beta, and it does take a while for MMOs to bloom when they launch, especially as far as performance goes. So you may notice some hitching and stuff. That is just because it is not fully optimized as of yet. But the game doesn't look too bad, and you can tell it's kind of that action MMO style where the cursor is bound, you know, to the camera. You can disengage it at any given time if you need to click on things, but for the most part, it's bound, which I'm okay with. So we'll talk to him.
Slowly now, you've been through an ordeal. Take a few moments to collect yourself.
Yeah.
Like you, I'm a prisoner in this place, yet so much more. I am the past and the future, both. I am despair and hope. The tapestry we weave is a complex one. You cannot hope to see its pattern in its entirety.
So as you can tell, it is very Elder Scrolls-y with the dialogue. I mean, it even zooms you in on the character and all that. So we'll just go through a little bit of this dialogue. We're not going to get super far into the game, so don't worry about super spoilers. This is just the intro thing, and it's the same for every class, every character, every race.
You must rescue me, and I, in turn, must rescue you. You must escape from this cell, take up arms, and protect yourself. Then find Lyris Titan.
Okay. He's just leaving. Anyways, we're gonna skip... Oh, someone's letting me out. How convenient. We're gonna skip a lot of the dialogue because I don't want to spend too much time sitting there looking at characters when, honestly... He wants me to follow him. Okay. When honestly, you could do this yourself. You can get it in the game and you can enjoy it on your own.
In the forge beyond these cells, Arm yourself.
Okay, so what it's going to do, because we haven't selected a weapon yet, we have selected, you know, that we're a Nightblade, and you would assume, oh, daggers and stuff like that. But you actually get to select your weapon. So I could go sword and board, I could go staff, I could kind of choose what I want here, which is a really cool concept, and it's something most of you are familiar with if you've played Guild Wars. So let's go with dual wielding, because it's actually kind of fun. We'll take both of those, and it will have us equip them. It's a typical tutorial. Yep, thank you. And your kind of character is over here, and then all of this is over here as far as your inventory is concerned, so you can scroll through all that. Thing to keep in mind, though, is all of these people running by, because they keep running through my screen, not actual players. Yeah, funny that. You will see actual players in the starting area, but these guys are not it. So, typical combat for your action combat, you know, left click spamming attacks. If you hold down left click, you get a power attack, which is same thing in any Elder Scrolls game, right clicking blocks, that kind of thing. With the dual weapons, one thing to note is, you know, obviously from separate Elder Scrolls game is right clicking doesn't attack with your other weapon. It just, I mean, left clicking attacks with both. So there you go. And then if you want to interrupt, apparently pushing both, so you would right click and then left click interrupts. So there you go, for example. So this is kind of the combat. Now, personally, I had such high hopes for this combat, but it falls short. We'll talk about that after we're done talking to her. We're just going to skip through all of this. Yeah, I know. We need to find you because the prophet told me to find you, and we are going to get out of here. Yeah, whatever. So let's show you a little bit of what the character stuff is concerned. So you level up and you upgrade your stamina, your magic, or your health. We're going to do our stamina, and that's pretty much it. There's also a little title, so it's your typical character screen. We'll commit those points, kind of the same thing that you would expect out of an Elder Scrolls game if you ever played one. This is a little unique though, so depending on what weapon you're using, you can get different abilities. So I'm using dual wield right now, so I can get twin slashes, but if I wanted to use a bow, I would get poison arrow and all this other stuff. So depending on what weapon you're using, a lot of this stuff changes. And then you can also put points into your armor. You have a racial ability, so these level up as you go, and you know you have your crafting stuff. But for the most part, we're just going to start putting our points into class stuff. And which one was it that I really liked? Was it Assassin's Blade? Don't think it was. There's like this really cool sprint thing, or not a sprint thing, but it's like a blink. There it is, teleport strike. So I want to put points into that, so I'm going to unlock Assassin's Blade just to get to it, because I actually really like that ability. So this puts it on its bar, so when we go into combat, you'll actually see it on our bar, and it's your typical hotbar combat system with that stuff. And it's kind of in the vein of Terra. It's got that idea behind the combat, where it's an action combat system. Yeah, I know. I need to talk to you, so let's just get it over with. There we go. So, let me show you what I mean by that. See how the hotbar pops up on the bottom? That's quite cool, right? So I can use that ability and it'll use it on him. Fairly typical for one of these action combat systems. The problem with it is it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. You know, like look at this. I know I'm complaining. It's an Elder Scrolls game, right? You're not supposed to have a ton of weight behind your combat. You're not supposed to be like exploding the ground and stuff. That stuff's just not supposed to be happening, because in any Elder Scrolls game, as you will well know, the combat is kind of whiffy. It's more realistic. It's based in reality. There we go. That's a better way of putting it. Whereas, you know, playing Terra, you're flipping around, you're smashing the ground with your giant maces and stuff, and it's fun. It's fun. While this combat system may be based in reality, it's not fun. Oh, and here's more players, so you can actually see that we have real players running around. Because you're not doing really epic things inside the combat system itself. Oh, they do have the sneaking system and everything, but it's not as robust as it is in normal Elder Scrolls games. Just thought I'd point that out, since it did point it out on my screen. So what do I mean by the, the combat? Like, look at that. It didn't, it doesn't feel like I'm hitting hard. It doesn't feel like I'm doing a lot of damage. It doesn't feel like I'm, being useful in combat almost. It's, I guess, hold on, I'll turn up the sound for you so you can kind of hear what I mean.
Well played, Grant.
See, like, the combat itself doesn't feel weighty because the sound effects don't necessarily support it. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense, but where am I supposed to be going? I don't even remember. I've done this quest like 100 times. It's up here, okay. Yeah, it doesn't feel weighty because the audio effects don't necessarily support it. So that's one of the problems with it. The other thing is the animations aren't really up to par. Like, I'm just kind of swinging my axes. I'm not really doing anything extravagant there. And that goes for most of the combat. The combat itself, as far as, whether I had a sword and board or a bow. Bow is really boring, I swear. Oh, I really didn't like the bow. But, the magic, on the other hand, magic is fine. I really like the magic abilities. I think that they were okay. They felt a lot better than this did. It just feels like I'm swinging at air. Even though you can hear that I'm hitting the target, there isn't a lot of visual feedback to back it up. So, I go back to the example of Terra. In Terra, you're smacking things around and things are exploding around you, and it's exciting. It's exciting combat, and I know that's not what they were going for with this, as far as visual is concerned, but because they didn't, it doesn't feel as good. And that's my primary concern about the games. The combat doesn't feel fun. Especially after playing WildStar. Now, obviously the NDA is on that game, so I can't really tell you a whole lot about that. But the combat in that game, if you watch any of the videos, feels really fun to use. It feels fun because once again, the abilities have weight to them. It feels like you're doing damage when you're actually swinging swords or you're shooting guns in that game. And it's not necessarily as good here, which is unfortunate. So, yeah, I know, I need to talk to you. Come here. And even in the facial animations, and the best one to show you actually is coming up over here, which is talk to this guy. His is better than most, which is saying a lot, but I'm going to show you kind of like the facial.
What's this? Out for a stroll then? Lovely day for it.
Like, look at that. His jaw just barely moves. The animation quality isn't there.
Well, yes, indeed, a pleasure.
He's not emoting. Yeah, so let's just go through all of this. This guy's nuts, by the way, but the animation quality isn't there, and that's across the board with everything. The run, not bad. It feels like I'm running. The sprint, yeah, you hold shift to sprint. Pretty common in action MMOs, actually. You hold shift to sprint. Doesn't look too bad. It actually looks a little wonky because it just looks like I'm running faster, as opposed to like I'm sprinting. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I think you know what I mean. Like, it just feels like I'm power walking super fast. So the animation there isn't as good. But, you look at the game aesthetic itself, and it should be able to support some really epic, epic maneuvers with sprinting and combat stuff and that, but it doesn't, and it's unfortunate. The best way that I've ever heard Elder Scrolls combat put as well is, I'm pretty sure it was from Games, it was either GameSpot or I think it was PC Gamer, actually, now that I think about it. What they had said was that the game suffers from being in the awkward middle ground between, an Elder Scrolls game and an MMO. They should have gone one direction or the other. If they went more MMO-y, it would have been a little bit more grandiose, They probably would have gone with more of the Terra style. So because of that, because they didn't, and the water looks really good in here, by the way, kind of cool. Because they didn't, you have this hotkey-based action combat, which is kind of wonky to begin with, but they do a pretty good job of it, mixed with Elder Scrolls combat, which is based in reality, which isn't very fun to use. So there's not a single point in the game where you're like, yeah, this combat is really fun, at least for me. And obviously, this is all personal preference. At least for me, this is how the game itself feels. Yeah, we'll talk to you. By the way, if you want to know kind of the basics of the story here, I'm trapped in this soul prison, basically, and this demon's keeping me here, and I'm trying to break out. The story is passable. The story isn't amazing. Then again, I mean, it kind of feels like the main story of an Elder Scrolls game, which isn't saying a lot because the main story is usually the worst part of an Elder Scrolls game, and it's usually like the Assassins Guild and stuff like that are really cool. Thieves Guild, Assassins... I think it's Assassins Guild. It's late. Look, I'm on literally at like 12 o'clock, and it's 12:13 right now as of recording this because there's less people running around. It does make it a little better. But all of the criticisms I've heard within the game thus far have come from the combat, especially. The story, people have been like, it's okay. The combat is really their main beef against the game. And the intro part here isn't too bad, you know, as far as story goes. You feel like you're in an Elder Scrolls game because you're escaping from a prison or something you're escaping from, and that's usually how most of those games start. And that's fine, I like that. The aesthetic of the game looks like an Elder Scrolls game, regardless of the characters being kind of, let me get in the light here and show you. You can kind of tell, you know, you look at it and you go, that's an Elder Scrolls character. But it's got this weird kind of look to it, weird art style. Like the girl that I was talking to, you could see it in her face, which is kind of like a mix between the Star Wars stuff, where they tried to stylize it a little bit to separate the look of the game. I'm okay with that. I said that, yeah, that's the demon. Okay, so the visual of the game itself is pretty good. You know, it's a good looking game. It looks like it was made a couple of years ago, but like I said earlier, it's hard not to get a game like that as an MMO unless you're Terra, because they want this game to run on a myriad of different computers, which is smart. You know, you're not going to get away with an Unreal Engine 4 MMO anytime soon, I don't think, because people just, their computers aren't up for it. Their internet isn't even up for that. It takes a lot of bandwidth to, you know, to transmit that kind of stuff. There would be a pretty significant noticeable lag if 100 people are running around and, you know, you're running an Unreal Engine 4 graphically capable game, which is a really good looking, you know, engine. It would lag because there's a lot of data being transmitted there. So, you know, graphically, the game is up to par as far as what you can get away with in an MMO. Like, that was a cool effect. A lot of their particle effects are very nice. I like them a lot. Talking about my journal, yep. Talk to him. Let's get out of here. So, let's talk about how you kind of get in to the next part of the world, right? So this is kind of the starting place. You haven't really seen many players. You'll see a lot more players when we get out, hopefully. But this is when the game opens up. So when your choice actually matters of what character you choose. So I chose the Aldmeri Dominion, I think is what the elves are. But if you choose the Ebonheart or the Daggerfall, the actual stuff within the game for this next part changes. So it changes where you go as a starter area, and that's fine. I like that. I like that it mixes it up a bit, so regardless of what faction you're going to be on, you're going to get, you know, a slightly different experience. And there's different stories there too. I like that. Oh, and there's the beautiful particle effects again within the game. But you know, you look at the combat system, and I could see why they made it the way they did, is because they have a focus on PvP, and they have a focus on large PvP. So that means you're going to have a lot of players on the screen at any given time, which means if you're having all these crazy animations and spell effects and particle effects, it's going to lag everybody out. It's going to reduce the frame rate. You're not going to be able to have those kind of effects. So here we are in my little area for the starter elf place. I actually haven't really gotten too far through this stuff. It is starting to load things in, so I'm kind of curious how many players are actually here. Because usually it loads a lot quicker than that. And let's get my loot. Yep, thank you. Can I equip that? Yes, I can. Let's equip it. There's a couple staves that I can equip there, but not going to. One thing I actually almost forgot to mention was, oh gosh, what was the keybind for it? It's not P. I hit P, but it's not P. It is S. K. It is K. So you'll notice here as you use things and as you use abilities, they level up. So like I'm using assassination stuff, so it's leveling up assassination, which I need assassination rank 4 to get teleport strike. So there you go. That's kind of how that works, and it works with weapons as well. Just letting you kind of know of how that is all working out. What's up, guy? Let's get a quest from you. Yeah, I bet you do. This is when the game kind of opens up, and opens up in a strange way. You have this map, and you can kind of go anywhere here. I mean, I can go off over this direction, off over this direction. It doesn't matter where I go. I'm going to find quests. I'm going to be able to do those quests. There obviously is an optimal, like, min-maxing way to complete the quests within a game. And people are going to figure that out, and they're going to do that. But for your first playthrough, it is kind of cool to be like, I could go a myriad of different places here. And it's really fun because the game opens up a lot. And I like that. I like that a lot of ways in the game. The thing I don't like about it is the reason the quest and the story doesn't feel as epic to me is because I think they spread it out too much. Like, they have all these mini quests all over the place, and they have like the main one that you're on, but the problem is the main one isn't that great, at least in my opinion, story-wise, and it doesn't really take you into epic moments until like the end of the zone. And even then, the epic moment is okay, So even doing these quests and having the open world to explore in and have fun with, it doesn't feel super great because you're not being able to do really awesome things. Once again, kind of going back to the whole, they wanted the based in realism with the combat. Well, they kind of wanted it to feel like kind of like a weird MMO-y Elder Scrolls thing. It's that mid ground again. It's like part MMO, part Elder Scrolls, but it doesn't really take the best aspects from either or. And you end up having these kind of, I don't know why I came out here. You end up having these kind of weird quests and combat system, and everything just feels a little off about the game. It feels a little off. And because of that, I'm just kind of suspicious about what is left for the end game. I know once you get to max level, there isn't a lot of PvE content. Where the hell am I supposed to be going? I guess I'm just going to go out this door then. And follow my nose. Yeah, okay, we'll just go out there. I know that there isn't like a super high end game, raids and anything like that. They have a focus on PvP. I'm okay with that because, once again, you can kind of see why they went with the combat system the way they did. I must investigate the undead at the Temple of the Morning. But what do you want from me? Oh, okay, so now it's moved the quest marker. Weird. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier. So yeah, it's just the combat feels let's try that again. The combat doesn't feel super great. How about that? The quests don't feel epic. The story isn't that great. Graphically, the game is okay. It could be better, but I don't really expect a whole lot from an MMO as far as graphics are concerned, so I'm not going too crazy here. And overall, I don't feel enthused about the game. To give you an example, when the first beta weekend happened, I got in, and me and Garrick got the game, and we were excited to try it. We were excited, like, okay, what is this game going to bring to the playing field of MMOs? What are we going to see with this game that we haven't seen in other MMOs that's going to change the scope? You always look for that thing that the MMO is going to be known for. And we played up to about level 15, and we were done. We were like, yeah, it's okay. We don't really feel the need to play anymore. We don't really feel like we should, the desire to even, continue playing the game. And that's kind of a problem. The game should hook you. First time I played Star Wars, I was hooked because I was like, this story is amazing. I want to see what happens next, First time I played WildStar, after getting out of the starting zone, let me say 1 through 3 in WildStar could be a bit better. But after getting out of that area, it was like, it was addicting, you know, that game, because you just wanted to see where the combat was going to take you, because the combat system just keeps getting better and better the more that you play that game. And, you know, even playing WoW for the first time, obviously this was a long time ago, but you're kind of like sucked into that game, because they do the, you know, the game is really fun, I guess is a way to put it. They do the fun factor really well. Another thing WildStar does well is, you know, you level up and the game goes like, oh, you know, F yeah, that was freaking awesome. It says stuff like that. And it bleeps out a lot of the bad words that it throws in there for comedic effect. You know, it's not ironic, it's for comedic effect, and it's funny. And when playing WildStar, the game makes you feel like you're having fun, because it has a very fun atmosphere to it. Whereas this it's got a serious atmosphere. Terra has a serious atmosphere. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. It just doesn't make you feel like you're having fun. And even after playing this game for quite a long time, I think I've put in, through all of the characters that I've played, through the wipe and everything, I've probably put in probably 40 to 50 hours in the game. And I've never felt hooked to it. That's a problem. That's a big problem about the game. And you can kind of get an idea of what the game's like by just kind of watching this video or playing it, because they're inviting so many people into these stupid beta weekends to try to get hype for it. But, you know, all these things considered, if the game was free to play, I would probably play through the story all the way to the end, see what the end game's like, see what the PvP's like. But it's not. I mean, you have to buy the game, first off, so there's that paywall. I'm okay with that. I don't really have any issues with that. But then there's the subscription. And at this point, a game has to be really good for me to subscribe to it anymore. And in order to have a subscription model, you have to have one of two things. You have to be such a good game like WoW that has such an installed user base that you're going to be able to survive off a subscription model. Or you have to be I guess it's one of three things. I just added one. You have to be a free-to-play game that has a subscription option, and that's fine. You know, PlanetSide does that very well. Star Wars does it very well. EverQuest Next is probably going to do that very well. The third option, which is the one I just added, is you have to be, or either have to be a game that has a subscription, you know, that you have to pay for in order to play the game, like this, like WoW. But you have to have the option in order to pay for it with in-game currency. And EVE has been doing that for the longest time. It's been very successful, because the people who have the time to put into the game and play through it are going to get rewarded because they can buy subscription time by playing the game, which means they can continue playing the game. If they don't want to continue putting the time into the game, then they're not going to worry about subscribing, and they're just going to, you know, peace out, A-Town down, and they're just going to take off, right? With, you know, with WildStar, they're kind of doing that, where you're able to purchase a subscription and sell it. So you can buy a subscription, you can sell it on their, you know, their marketplace, whatever they call it. I guess, you know, auction house is probably the term that they're going to use. I don't really know. And other players can buy that, and you effectively are buying money, right? You're buying in-game gold, because you're selling you're buying it with real money, the subscription, and then you're selling it on their auction house. And that's fine, but I think you have to be one of those three things. You either have to have a huge subscriber base and installment base for players, or the free-to-play with the subscription option that isn't, you know, completely mandatory, or, you know, finally the subscription option with the option to buy your subscription in the game. If you don't have one of those three things, you're probably not going to do too well. As we saw with Star Wars when it first came out. It did really well to begin with, and then it didn't, you know, very far into the game. Probably, you know, 2 months in, people stopped playing it. And then they switched to free-to-play, and now the game is super successful because people, you know, really like the game and want to play it. They just didn't want to pay $15 a month for it, because most of those people are playing WoW. That's kind of the same problem here. This is a subscription game. Most people are going to be playing other games, such as WoW, you know, WildStar when it comes out, If they're not already playing WoW, Star Wars is a good example, PlanetSide. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm just kind of skipping through this. Anyways, I don't feel like Elder Scrolls is gonna have the installed player base after a couple months to keep it running, and I fear that it will go free to play. Not something I want to see happen to the game, but I feel like that is exactly what is going to happen. Because there's nothing here to keep me playing for a long period of time. I'm not a PvPer, so I care less about the PvP in the game. Other people are really excited about it, and that's cool. But what happens when those people start getting bored and their massive scale PvP becomes small scale PvP because there's nobody playing? You know, it's a snowball effect. So I'm afraid the game won't be super great. And I think that most people are not going to stick with it after their first month, which is unfortunate because not only do they have to pay the game or buy to play the game, but then they have to pay to subscribe, and there's just a lot of problems there. Oh, and also there's an in-game shop. Probably should point that out. There's a microtransaction shop that I've heard oodles about, have not actually experienced. In fact, can we get into that? I don't think it'll have anything like that up. No, I don't think you can access any of that until launch. But I've heard it's a lot of just small things, which is fine. I've never seen that before. That looks cool. The cloud thing going on over there. Can I kill this crab? Is that an option? Yeah, I can kill the mud crabs. I'm okay with that. But I think you can kind of get the idea and the feel for the game. Because if you've played an MMO, you probably know how this is going to work. If you've played Elder Scrolls, you probably know how this is going to work. Unfortunately, it's not going to live up to either expectations of an MMO or an Elder Scrolls game, because it's in that awkward middle ground between the two. That water effect, though, super sexy. That's a pretty good water effect. I give him credit. So, I'm going to be putting up a few more videos throughout the weekend as I play the beta some more and, show you guys crafting and stuff like that. But overall, that's my thoughts. I'll let you decide whether or not you think the game is worth it. But pretty much what you've seen thus far is a lot of the game. There's cool stuff here and there, but for the most part, this is a lot of what the game will be to you when you pick it up and start playing through it. You gotta wonder, like, is putting 50 to 80 hours in a game just to get to the good part worth it? In most people's cases, no, because they don't have that kind of time, right? I'm afraid that this is going to be that same problem. You have to sink a lot of time into the game to get to the good part, if there is a good part. And once you get there, is it even going to be worth it after all the time that you've sunk in? Yeah, it's kind of a problem. Unfortunately, true. With Star Wars, you get into the game, and the good part's throughout the entire game, because the good part is actually the story. The combat's okay. It's a better version of the WoW combat, in my opinion. But the story is what keeps you playing. With WildStar, the story is actually kind of... you can kind of dismiss a lot of the story, but the combat is hilarious. The combat is what it's hilarious is what I meant there. Because you could do so many funny things with the combat, and it's just explosive and very visceral, and it's fun. Plus, the game has a good sense of humor, so that will keep you around. And WoW, you're going to be kept around because you want to get to end game and play with your buddies that have been playing WoW for hundreds of years, however long that game's been out. It's almost been 10 years actually since the launch of WoW. But with this, I don't feel hooked to it, and that's a problem. So once again, I'll let you kind of figure out. I'm just murdering sheep like a terrible person. Got the ram too. Saved the ram for last. I let the ram watch a bunch of sheep buddies die. Then I killed him. It's like, you can't protect these people. I'll let you determine whether or not you like the game based on your own experience. Personally, I don't think it's very great. I will not be buying it, and I probably would play it if it was free to play for a little bit, but not for very long. And that's unfortunate. However, with all of that being said, we'll put up a couple more videos, but we'll see you guys next time.